Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Find Your Why Foundation for the why questions of the day. And so today you are joined by Dr. Marion Bevington.
And Dr. Cheryl Chapman at your service.
Yes, here we are. And welcome Judy Dyer. Hello, Judy Dyer. Judy Dyer is joining us. And the question for today, because this is all about wise questions from wise women in the Live, Love, Laugh Lounge, or wise questions from the wise men in the man cave, who are asking us why questions. And the day of the day, the question of the day is, why don't I know what I want? Is that even a sentence? Why don't I know what I want? Oh yeah, it was just the way I said it. It just made it sound a little bit strange. So why don't I know what I want? I don't know. Why don't I know what I want? Marion, why don't I know what I want? What's that all about then?
I don't know. What do you want?
No, it's called the Mavis question.
Why don't you know? I know why we don't know what we want. Because nobody ever bloody asked us. Usually. We get told what to do, don't we? We don't get asked what we want to do very often. And then often when people do ask us what we want to do, it's cloaked as an instruction, but made out to be a request.
Such as, can you give us an example?
You know, things like when, I don't know, if you're on holiday with somebody, or if you're going shopping with somebody, or if you're going out for the day with somebody, and they say, oh, well, what do you want to do? And you go, well, you know, well, let's go and have a walk on the South Bank. Oh, so they obviously didn't want to do that. So that's where it's cloaked, because they really wanted to say, let's go and wash the quilts in the laundrette and watch the machine going round and round and round.
Mate.
So it's when people are not honest and they're not saying, actually, what I'd really like to do is I'd like to do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Or have you got another suggestion? We get asked questions, don't we, all the time? And I think from our genetic blueprinting, we know, Cheryl and I have both got open heads. And so we have this tendency, when you have an open head, if you know about your genetic blueprint, you'll know whether or not your head is fixed or open. When people have an open head, they are... you kind of have this habit of trying to answer everybody's questions. And the people who have fixed head, they have lots of questions, but they're quite capable of coming up with the answers for those questions themselves. And they're often the people who ask us questions about what it is that we want when they kind of know what they did want to do anyway. But yeah, just not knowing what we want, I think, has come out of the way that we've been programmed by the education system, for example. Because you go to school and it's not until how old are you when you have your options? You're like 13, aren't you, by then? So you're just turning into a spotty, greasy teenage rebel. And for the first time ever, they say, what would you like to do? What do you mean, what would you like to do? Well, you know, do you want to do you can either do geography or history. You can do Spanish or French. So they give you these choices of things. And I think up until that point, especially at school, I don't think anybody had ever asked what you wanted before, had they? You do English, you do maths, you do sums, you do reading, you do history. So they just tell you what to do all of the time, and then all of a sudden comes the day when, you've got some choices. And so it's quite tricky because we've never been allowed to really connect to what makes us happy, because then often what happens as well when it comes to education, we've got these preconceived ideas of what career we might want to go into, or what our dad did, so we want to copy him, or what our mum wants us to do, so we're going to follow her lead. So we're being led by all these other people, which means that our decision is being affected by what other people want and think or believe. And again, this is another beautiful thing about the genetic blueprinting, isn't it? That it helps us to really understand who we are. Not the conditioning, not the should-bes and the ought-to-dos and the want to help and impress people. It's about me. It's about who I am as an individual being. And that really helped me when I got my genetic blueprint and started to really understand it. It made finding my why very easy, because again, your why is what you want. What do you want more of? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? So it's all of this from me. What is it that I actually want? And yeah, it's just I just don't think people don't consider it because it's not part of our normal life, if you like.
It's interesting when you're just saying that. I never thought about it before, but when you're talking about, before we get to a certain age and then we have to have the options, I was just thinking then if you ask the kid what it wants, it usually knows. Because if you think about a baby, it's crying, so it either wants feeding, it's got a shitty nappy, or it's got wind, or it's a bit lonely. So it's kind of like we cry, don't we, when we're babies, for attention initially. So what we want is attention. And then as you get a little bit older, like maybe you're 2 or 3, what do you want? Well, I want a toy. I want
his toy. It's mine.
I want this, I want that. You seem to know exactly what you want when you're of a certain age, don't you? And then I wonder why, well, I have an idea that the reason why we then stop asking for what we really want is because we get told we can't have it.
Conditioning, all the conditioning.
Share with your brother, share with your sister. I mean, I don't know because I didn't have any brothers or sisters till I was 16, and then Gemma and I were sharing completely different types of toys at that stage. That sounds so wrong, and it's not supposed to be smutty in the slightest, but it just sounded wrong, didn't it? I mean, she was 2. I'm not sharing a toy with her, as in a baby doll. Do you know what I mean? I don't need that. But we were sharing the attention of our parents. We were sharing, what TV channel. That's what I was actually talking about there. Before everyone goes, oh, here she goes again. So at that stage, you know what you want when you're a child, and that's interesting because we're going to come on to it in a minute about finding your why.
There's also this idea of terrible twos because they say no all the time. Well, isn't that a brilliant way of expressing what you don't want? And you do. I think you need to understand sometimes, don't you, what you don't want in order to get to what you do want. But we call it terrible. We've labelled this behaviour where 2-year-olds are actually trying to express what they want, and we've made it a negative process for them. I've never thought about that until you were just saying that then.
Yeah. And it's like Leon, my nephew, his sister's little and, bigger than actually, he's bigger than me nearly. He was told at school that, he doesn't fit in. He's constantly looking out the window or he's being creative. I mean, I don't know the actual specifics of it, but I know when I read the school report, it was driving me mad because it's kind of like, well, he's not fitting in and conforming with everybody else. That's pretty much what they were saying. Yeah. And because he's the biggest kid in the school, like all of a sudden, he's not a bully, but like, if there's something going on, he's the biggest one, so he must be the one that's in control. So, at the end of the day, when you're at school, as I say, you know what you want, and then it does, you get conditioned. Look, when you're crying, what do you cry for normally? Because you want a bit of attention, you want some love, you've fallen over, or maybe you're upset because somebody said no to you. And what's the comments that come out? Shut up or I'll give you something to cry about. Not what's wrong with you, what can I do for you? And again, we get this a lot. I mean, this is something that I've been working on just recently, in fact. If somebody's got a problem or an issue, they come to me with RTT just as they come to you with kinesiology, with tapping. It is you say this to me all the time, what is your preferred response? And sometimes it takes a lot to even, it takes a long time to think about what is it that I want instead.
Yeah. Sometimes, because I work with Tremaine on that as well, one of my teachers, we do work regularly, and trying to configure a preferred response in your head, especially when you're looking back at an inner child situation, takes absolutely, and you're right, sometimes I can't even think of one to get him to help me out.
What do I really want? And I think the other thing is that what I've noticed, when you did the work with me right at the very beginning, and of course there was that that time, when it was like, you've got to be careful. And it was like, oh my God, like that the head, the screaming in my head, the voices that I could hear, obviously clearly my own voice in my head was, oh my God, they found out. And then trying to work out what I was going to do instead of being careful. Because that had served me as a child, keeping me careful, of course, from harm, which was great. But as I'd grown up, I'd taken those words, you've got to be careful, literally, to not actually do an awful lot of things in my life, which would have expanded my awareness, taken me to potentially better places. But to actually find what those, what did we go through? What, have I got to be careless? I've got to go stand on the M25 and get run over? Or, I've got to be like really... just caution to the wind. What couldn't think of those words, could we? What it is that
we came up with carefree, and you couldn't. You said, I don't even know what it means.
No,
I don't like feel. I don't get it. Carefree. I don't get it. because you'd always been on this side of careful rather than carefree.
Yeah. So the question is, I suppose, in terms of, why don't I know what I want? Well, that could be because you've had some conditioning. It can be because maybe your awareness of what's available has been limited. I never knew what it was like to have, my own company, because actually I didn't know anybody who had their own company. So how could I say, I want to be a business owner or I want to be an entrepreneur? Because I'd only ever worked for people who had their own businesses. That's a very different feeling when you're an employee. I mean, you can say, oh, I look at my boss and I think, well, I don't know if I want a business because, my boss at the time was working really long hours, was like absolutely obsessed with the business. And I didn't know if that's what I really wanted, because he didn't seem to have an awful lot of time to do what he wanted to do. That was his choice. That's what he preferred to do. And I look back at a lot of the entrepreneurs that I worked for, they all had the same traits. So I was like, why would I want to be an entrepreneur? Because that, for me, just meant you did everything yourself, pretty much, or you got somebody like me in, or you did a lot of hours, worked, all the hours God sent, didn't seem to have a lot of, you had a bit of money, had a bit of money, of course, that seemed quite attractive, but it didn't seem very attractive to me as a whole to want to be an entrepreneur. So there's lots of reasons why you don't know what you want, you don't know what's available to you.
Well, now I'd absolutely love to be able to play an instrument of some kind. But when I was at school, that was what the posh kids did. And I wasn't one of the posh kids. I was around the back having a fag with a bottle of cider and some boys. So, that's posh kid stuff. I'm not doing that. So now, I would absolutely love to play an instrument. So had I known what I know now at school at the age of however old you are when you do your options, I would have chosen music and I would have chosen to play an instrument. But then it was, it wasn't available to me because nobody in my peer group was doing it. The posh kids were definitely not my peer group.
It's a bit like, when you say to the kids, like, I remember when you say to the kids, what is it you want? And they go, I don't know. But I tell you something, you get a young kid and you say, what do you want for Christmas? And hang them an Argos catalogue.
Yes.
Showing you that I was dragged up to that, by the way. And they'll write a bloody long list as if they're, money's no object. Yeah. So it really...
we had a Grattan catalogue when we were kids. And I remember, the Christmas catalogue would arrive in July or August, wouldn't it? And so from the day it arrived, I'd be there at the back. I want that pram, I want that game, I want that, and no toys or shoes, and no clothes or shoes. It was just the toy section because I remember it was really little. But and by Christmas I'd be so upset because I couldn't get any of the toys that I wanted because I wanted the whole fucking catalogue actually.
You got knickers, didn't you? You got given knickers. That's what you're going to tell me.
No. Knickers, we couldn't afford that.
So this is what happens though. Look, this is what happens when you grow out of this. I know what I want, what I really, really want. I had to put in the ziggers now, didn't I? I was with the client today, actually. We were talking about that because he had one of these words on his system. And it was like, what do you want? And I'm going, what you really, really want? And he's looking at me as if I'm crazy. But anyway, there you go. Nothing new there. And so when you know what you want, I suppose maybe one of the other reasons why, you don't know what you want now is because of the disappointment. Because as a child, I've got to be honest, my parents always gave me everything I want. As long as it was 50 quid or under, I was pretty much safe. And I kind of worked that out fairly early. So as long as I had something, I had this is where people go, is this really Cheryl? I had a singer-sewing machine. I had a violin, you see, because I wasn't one of the posh kids, but I did like to fiddle every now and again. Anyway, I did actually play the violin, probably very badly. So the thing is, I knew what I wanted, and when I asked for what I wanted, I would always get it. But of course, I was asking for things within reason. So you're not asking for what you want now because you've either had it hammered out of you that it's not available, or you're not getting what you want because you don't ask for what you really want. Or there's been some conditioning around it. And, so those are the reasons why you don't really know what you want, because it's kind of like life's got a hold of you, hasn't it, really? Let's have a quick see who we've got. We've got lovely Judy Dyer with us. Oh, Mr. Rick McMahon.
Oh, hello, Rick.
We are honoured to have your presence.
What are you after?
Yeah, what are you after? So Rick's like, okay, well, I was there at the beginning, ladies, when we did your Find Your Why book. # just saying. Yes. Thank you. We're very grateful for that. So we're just talking about why don't I know what I want? And this is, another one of those days where we've got those why questions that people keep asking us. And so we are sharing our wise words because we are two old wise women. Hey, less of the old. So the question is, if we don't know what we want and why we don't know what we want, how can we, what can we do to understand?
Well, the thing that you just said before, what's your preferred response? What would you? So if it's about your behaviour or about your responses, then it's good to know what would you prefer to do. And then, again, we talked about modelling yesterday, didn't we? Who do you see who's doing something like you that you like, or just something in the way that you like? But actually, for me, the key to this is the question that is about, if money was no object and you never had to work to earn money again, what would you do every day? What would you get out of bed for, and what would you do? Because that's where you start to realise what it is that you just want to naturally spend your time doing without any obligations. So that, for me, is a really, really key question. Money is no object. You don't have to work if you don't want to. What would you do when you get up in the morning? What would your sort of general daily routine be?
I think there's another one as well, but because people are so kind of programmed into, negativity, generally, how are you? I'm not bad. I didn't ask you how you weren't. I asked you how you were, So what is it that you want? I think that you can start with the negative. If we're so programmed to be negative, so write down all the things you don't want, and then do the opposite of that. So, I don't want to be struggling, having no money. Well, what's the opposite of that? I want to have some money. Great. How much money do you want? How much do you need? I don't want to be alone. Great. So you want to be with a partner. What kind of partner do you want? Do you want a one-night stand? Do you want a casual relationship? Do you want friends with benefits? Do you want to be, married? What kind of relationship is that? Because if you don't know what you want, then it ain't never happening. Because if you don't know what you want, you don't actually know when it appears.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
So, that's the next stage.
Money and people. That's all I want in my life there.
But what will you feel like when you've got money and people? Because that's the deeper process, isn't it? Because if we want money, you said I don't want to struggle. So what is it when you're not struggling? Actually, that is what you want. Because the money will stop the struggle. And so not that you want the money, it's that you want to stop struggling. So what's the opposite of struggle for you? So look at the words that have got feelings around them, emotive words, words that have got lots of emotional connections for you, emotional associations for you. And look at the opposite of that emotion and see, so the opposite of struggle for me would be ease or flow. So words like that.
Yeah.
Are the opposites of struggle. And we all have our own opposites as well, don't we? There's not a one shop fits all.
Trying to think what else people say when they come to us. The usual one is I don't want to struggle, with money anymore. Then of course we've got
I want more time. I haven't got enough time.
Yeah, that's actually a very positive one that people say I want more time. The reason why I chose the partner one is I don't want to be alone is another favourite. I don't want to work for this person anymore. Good. So what is it that you want to do instead? Let's have a quick check-in with our lovely viewers. So we've got Judy Dyer who's saying maybe there's too much choice nowadays. Yeah, possibly. When you were a kid, I remember the days at Christmas when you used to just get a tangerine and an apple in a tan stocking.
And a piece of coal.
Did you get coal? God, we didn't get coal around us. Angelica Brauker is joining us. Hello, good evening. So the question is, why don't I know what I want? Is that what it is? Let me just remind myself.
Yes.
Why don't I know what I want? And of course, we're just looking at why you don't know what you want. Well, maybe it's there's too much choice. Maybe it's because as a child you knew what you wanted, and now, of course, as an adult you get told no, or as you're growing up, no, you can't have that. Shut up, you'll be given what you get. I'm trying to think of all those lovely sayings that happen between the ages of X and Y. And then maybe we kind of get a little bit conditioned, a bit indoctrinated to I stop asking because I never got what I wanted. Interestingly, I think that the universe does supply I can remember walking behind a guy called Keith Sorkill on the way to school when I was 15, doing the Wayne's World thing. Oh, yes, he will be mine. Oh, yes, he will be. And he was. I mean, and I still have no idea to this day how that happened, because he was actually dating the most fantastically beautiful, most beautiful girl in the school, Corinne McGill. If Corinne McGill's watching this, that'd be really funny. And yeah, and then for some reason he ended up going out with me. And I was a little bit of a geek, very shy, very pale, and I had a big nose. I know it's difficult to believe that, but I was very shy. So, why are the reasons? So please share, if you're watching with us, why you think you don't always know what you want. But the question, of course, is, well, how can I understand what I do want? So go to preferred responses, look at lists of things that you know you don't want, and then change those, and then go for the feelings. Feelings is the big one for you. Anything else that we can share with our lovely viewers on our lovely wise question of the day?
One of the things that it's happened yesterday, I was having a conversation with somebody about him not realising or not knowing what he actually did want. So I said to him, "What, you go on holiday?" And he said, "Yes." "What do you do when you're on holiday?" And he said, "Drink."
Right.
And I said, "There's a bit of a clue there that you're actually distracting from something, or you're trying to not feel something, because drink, drugs, and sausage rolls, all they do is suppress feelings. So there's something there that you don't want to feel. Unfortunately, they do work and they do suppress the feelings, but you can't suppress one feeling. If you begin to suppress feelings, you suppress them all. Brené Brown says it. You can't selectively suppress. So when you do start dumbing things down with alcohol or food or sex or drugs or sausage rolls, then you're also dumbing down your happiness levels, you're dumbing down your joy levels, you're dumbing down your fulfillment levels, as well as the anger or the sadness or the disappointment or the frustration. We can't selectively suppress. So let's not suppress. Let's allow ourselves to realize what those feelings are, because then you've got even more clues, if you like, more ammunition to begin to find what you do want, to begin to find your why.
So now I'm going to do so there might be a lot of people watching this, whether they're watching it now, in terms of live with us, or whether or not they're watching it recorded. We're going, so what are you on about, Maz? So what you're saying is I can't have sex, I can't have drugs, and I can't have sausage rolls. Well, that sounds like a pretty boring life now. So, well, I know what I do want, and that is I do want to get drunk, and I do want to, have sex, and I do want to take a few sausage rolls if I want to along the way.
And it's the key to this is moderation. Because if you go beyond moderate, and I would always be very moderate with my moderation too. So if you go beyond moderation and a little bit more, because obviously, it's time for celebration. There is excess often at the time of celebration, which is great because it is for celebrating. But it's when you use excess as a way to not feel something that you don't want to feel. That's when it's a problem. Not when you're using it positively for celebration or for enjoyment or for fulfillment, because you're actually expressing more positive. You're not suppressing the positive emotions while you're doing it. But if the reasons that you're doing it is to hide away from your own fear or your own anger or your own sadness, then that's where it's an issue, because as I say, the dumbing down of that emotion is going to start to blanket every other emotion as well. And so it's about excess, being excessive, not really about, party, have a good time, have as many sausage rolls as you like. But if you do it every day, there's a problem.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit like, we're talking to people, all the time who've got excess. My excess, everybody knows, was alcohol. Haven't drunk now. Oh, what date is it? Oh, it's not June yet. Nearly June. Nearly 3 years. Wow. And I know that at the time, the reason why I was drinking so much was because I didn't want to feel miserable. So you're absolutely right. I was just trying to dumb down that feeling. But of course, that then suppressed all these other feelings that was going on, so I didn't recognize that there were other things I could have done to actually make myself feel better. Because guess what? In the morning, I didn't feel any better. Or even after the first drink. A little bit like with the biscuits. I'll have one because I deserve it, or I feel much better, or whatever it is. And then, the packet later, you kind of like, well, now I feel shit. In fact, I feel shitter than I did before, because now I feel shit for eating all the biscuits. So I agree with that. That is never, ever, ever going to like sort it out. It really is just distracting and covering over. It's like wallpapering over mold, isn't it?
Exactly.
So in terms of being able to really know what you want, of course, we've already said, make a list of what you don't want, and then what's the opposite of that. Really look at what it is that you want. What's the feeling that you're after? But of course, we're going to heavily, openly, blatantly promote the fact that when you find your why, it does make it a lot easier. And the reason why that is because when you know what you want to do, when you know what your why is, your purpose, when you know why you're here, and Maz, you talked earlier about the genetic blueprint. So for those people who don't know about that, this is, it's like a version of a personality profiling that doesn't rely on you answering any questions other than where were you born, when were you born, and what time were you born. And once we've got this information, and bear with, because look, anybody talking about energy work 5 years ago to me, and I'd have been like, oh God, here we go, woo-woo shite. But actually, this system is so amazing, so precise. It helps you. I mean, it really helped me. It really helped Marion. It's helped all of our wise women, all of our wise men that have been through this process. It really helps you to understand why you're here. I mean, and actually, it does give you all the answers. So I know, for example, there are 5 different types of people that you can do in this particular process. And I am an architect, which means that I can see the gaps. I see what needs doing. I can just see it. I thought everybody else could see it. And also, I'm not here to do, because I don't have an awful lot of energy, although I have a few more energy centers than most of the architects out there in the world. However, I cannot necessarily keep up with someone like Marion, because Marion's a specialist. And so she has a generator energy. She's like a Duracell bunny on heat when she likes what she's doing. Try and get to do what she doesn't like, and you might as well, it's about, as Mr. Chapman would say, it's about as much use as tits on fish. Because you can't get them motivated.
It's like plaiting piss.
Oh, nice. It's about as much as a chocolate fire guard. Go on, keep going. Let's see how many we can do. I'm joking. So at the end of the day, once you know these things, I now know I can see the gaps. I know that that's a really fantastic thing that I can do, that actually, let me just try and work out the percentages, that over 75% of the world can't do. It's just something that I know, and the rest of the architects can see. Likewise, in terms of 70% of the world, you have a gut instinct. And you've got a good gut instinct, because when you've ignored your gut instinct, it's gone tits up. We're back on tits on fish.
Oh, and the other thing about the gut instinct is as well, it's not even just a feeling, the whole body reacts. Because when you start to tune into this gut feeling, you realise it physically moves the whole body. So this is another gem that I got from understanding my own design in the genetic blueprint.
Yeah. So when you know what your why is and why you're here, when you know what your purpose is, not only do you know the person that you were born to be, that also shows you the person that you were put here to do, what you were put here to do as a person. And also you can find out what this is, not only through the genetic blueprint, but also by looking in the past, because you were born with your why. When you're a child, when you go back, you can see the evidence is all there. And when you know what your why is, you're able to say yes or no to opportunities that come to you. In other words, you'll be able to say, this opportunity comes to you, and you go, well, is this really for me? Well, hang on a minute. If my why is to inspire others, to guide people, this actually isn't helping me guide people. This is actually just helping me to help somebody who doesn't want to do this themselves, because they want to go off and be with their family, but they're not bothered about you being with your family, for example. So then you can go, actually, that'll be a no. And there's no guilt. Because you know what you want. You know what you want. You know your purpose, and your passion is to be a guide, is to be an architect, or whatever that design might be for you.
And it's so important, isn't it, that because this whole thing about making decisions, it's really tricky. There's a really good story, actually. So this guy's got this huge farm, and he's got loads of work to do. And this bloke turns up one morning, and he says, his new handyman. He says, we've got all these fences that need fixing. He walks him around the farm and he shows him all the fences. And at the end of the day, the guy comes back and he went, I've done all the fences. And the farmer's like, all of them? Yeah, done them all. And he goes around and he has a look, and it's brilliant. He's done absolutely amazing work. So the next day, he's like, God, I don't know what I'm going to get him to do. Oh, I know. He's got a field that's a bit awkward for digging. He said, so I need, where around the trees and the bushes and that field there needs digging, and there's a few others like that. So that's the next set of work that you can do. So at the end of the day, the guy comes back, right, all those fields are completely dug now. He goes and he has a look. He's done a brilliant job. It's like, oh, my God, great. Well, I'll see you in the morning. So the next day he comes back, and the farmer's like, shit, I don't know what. It's like I've run out of work for him to do already. He says, oh, I know. He says, right, come with me. Come down into the cellar. So we've got these potatoes. He said, now I need you to sort them. I want potatoes that are for seeding, potatoes that are for selling, and the ones that we just need to throw away and put on the compost heap. You're all right with that? He goes away. At the end of the day, the man comes up and he went, oh, I've had enough of this. I'm handing him my notice. And he goes, you can't. He says, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm handing him my notice. I can't. I don't want to do this. He says, what do you mean? You're brilliant. You fixed all my fences. You've dug all those fields. You're like, you really know what you're doing, and you seem to enjoy your work. He went, well, that was all right. He said, but those bloody potatoes, it was decision after decision after I couldn't stand it. So when you know how to make a decision easily, when it's almost like the decision happens for you, and this is what happens when you know your why, when you know what you want, and when you understand your genetic blueprint. It's like decisions just, it's like they literally fall out of you, and you go, oh, that was easy. You don't have to do all the potato sorting. It's like the
great thing is that it's kind of like you're on the right path. And when you're on the right path, then, of course, there are some options that come along, and you can make a different decision. It doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're going down the right path. But once you take a path, then, of course, it can lead to the right one. Let's take a look at who's joining us here. So we've got Angelica, we've got Rick still with, we've got Judy. So Angelica's saying, what a bummer that I cannot selectively can't put my teeth in. Suppress.
Selectively suppress.
Yes, on a serious note, it makes sense. And by the way, it took ages for this to write. Thank you, Angelica. Thank you for joining in. So in order to find your why, not only does it give you your passion, but it does give you a guide. It gives you a strategy for life that enables you to know exactly what you want, which is great. So if you've got problems knowing what it is that you want, if you feel like, it's just a big day, you've got no idea where you want to go in life, you're just kind of like, is this the same shit, different day? Why am I here? If any of these questions are what you're asking, then please connect with us. Please connect with us either on a PM or, just put a little posting down below. And we'd really love to connect with you. Of course, we have the WHYs membership for the WHYs men in the Man Cave and the WHYs women in the Find Your Why Live, Love, Laugh Lounge. And it's just £20 a month. Come and join us. Get some more teaching. If you like what you've been hearing here, you can always, get to be around us even more. We do a live Q&A every month. We do teachings. We've got lessons. And we actually use a strategy that's called AIM to Find Your Why, which is all about, awareness, more awareness of who you are, why you're where you are, how to set a goal and an intention, which is absolutely really good fun, because we always laugh because we say when you set an intention, when you want to get somewhere, then of course there's a bit of work to do, but we like to make it in a fun way. And then of course you can manifest, or as we say, AKA move your ass. Yes. And so thank you for joining us.
Move your ass.
Move your ass. Yes, no, it's ass. Move your ass. And then you can get what you really want. I mean, what you really, really, really want.
You really want zigga zigga.
Yeah, we call that the Spice Girls strategy. We should maybe change that now. And so thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back tomorrow with another wise question. And if you've got a question that you think, I wonder why this always then please let us know and we will answer it. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. In the meantime, remember to live, love and laugh every day. And we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.